Today we're breaking down the price tiers in bourbon and giving you recommendations for each level. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So today I think we've got a nice, informative, hopefully fun too, format for today's video. We're going to talk through each of the different price tiers in bourbon. And for each price tier, I'm going to give you two recommendations, two bottles I think are worth going out and trying or adding to your collection. So the whole premise or purpose of this video is just to help you and myself navigate the world of whiskey by price range. So for instance, if you're in the type of category right now where you're like, I'm really looking for a great $30 bottle of whiskey, I'm going to walk you through what that might look like and some options. And we'll go, $250, $100. We'll even go all the way up to the $200, dollar plus range with unicorn bottles. So for each price range, I'll give you a sense, a lay of the land, what might be available to you, and then give you some recommendations. Let me get out my notes and then we'll start diving in. Okay, so got my notes here because I've worked through what I see as the different price ranges. Caveat is there's a lot of different ways to break this down. I've just taken a stab at it and I think this should be helpful. And then again, for each, I'll give you two recommendations. We're going to start with the lowest price range. That's the $20 to $30 tier. I would call this your traditional bottom shelf. So when it comes to bottom shelf whiskeys, even though they may be best used in a cocktail or mixed into other drinks, where that's primarily what they might be used for, we're also looking for bottles that are good introductory whiskeys, bottles that are solid to sip on. And the truth is, even in the $20 to $30 range, you can find some really good, solid sippers. I think that in this range, this is where you can explore the sort of base level offering from essentially every distillery. And that's a good thing, because then you can get to know their profile a little bit and start to figure out what you like best. So you might try a Wild Turkey 101 and see, do I like this? Do I like this Wild Turkey profile? You could try a Jack Daniel's Bonded and really get to know if you enjoy the Jack Daniel's profile. I've got two in mind that I think are really solid. I don't actually have these bottles on hand because, hey, I've used them. I have drunk them or used them in cocktails. For me, can't really beat Evan Williams Bottled in Bond and Early Times Bottled in Bond. So the Evan Williams is going to introduce you to the world of a nuttier caramely profile, and the Early Times is going to introduce you to more of a cherry brown sugar experience. So either way you go, I think you're getting a great sipper for $20 to $25. Sometimes you can see the Evan Williams still for less than $20, which is an absolute steal. So both those are a great recommendation. Again, bottom shelf does not mean bad. It does mean that you might not get the most spectacular whiskey, but you can still find stuff that's great to sip on, and you can explore a lot of profiles if you stay in this range. All right, so $20 to $30 was a pretty specific small range. We'll broaden it out now. We'll go from $30 to $60, and I'd call these your mid-tier bourbons. So when it comes to your mid-tier options, your world starts to open up quite a bit between $30 and $60, especially as you start to get toward the higher end of this price range. There's just a lot more to explore that's unique, different. This often gets you into the territory of, hey, single barrels. I can go after something that's a little bit more unique or specific. And each distillery tends to have that maybe bottom shelf option, and then a second option in this range, maybe two or three even, that really give you even distinct branches within a distillery. The other thing is that you're gonna have some craft whiskey options now available to you if you're willing to go up to $60. Okay, so let's talk through some recommendations I've got. First bottle I've got in this $30 to $60 range is Buffalo Trace. Now, Buffalo Trace can be found for a little bit less than $30, but most consistently I see it from like $30 to $35. So still very affordable. This will introduce you to the whole Buffalo Trace profile, which is full of cherry, grape, fruits, and good oak. It's an 8-year bourbon, which is great. This thing also opens the door to the rest of Buffalo Trace if you can find it at MSRP. You don't even have to go up to $60 for a lot of them. Eagle Rare, E.H. Taylor, even Weller 107. Harder to find, admittedly, but all in that range for MSRP. But then it also just opens up a whole world of other options. If you can't find Buffalo Trace or any of its brothers in its line, I'd recommend another bottle. Elijah Craig, this is the toasted barrel. A similar story with the Buffalo Trace. This is becoming a lot easier to find now that they've sort of caught up to demand. And for about 50 to 55 bucks, this is a great profile. I mean, you could get the regular old Elijah Craig for like 30 to 35. Then you can also step it up with a whole toasted experience. So again, this $30 to $60 range is where bourbon really starts to widen your options. And you can even get things like a toasted finish or a craft whiskey, and you can really start to explore the creative differences between distilleries and even within distilleries. All right, moving right along to our third tier, which is going to be from $60 to $90. And I'd call these elevated pours. So this is where I think you start to get maybe some of the best bang for your buck. Now, yes, if you spend $25 to $30 on Buffalo Trace or Wild Turkey 101, you're getting great value for your dollar. But if you want to go into the more distinct, perfectly crafted, really intentional whiskeys, you can go into this $60 to $90 range and you can explore a ton. When I was first getting into whiskey, I kind of took this process where I'd go up a few, $10, $15 in range each time and kind of explore new stuff. And when I got to this range, it just became like a kid in a candy store because you got so many great options. Let me give you a couple examples. So the first I've got for you is Russell's Reserve Single Barrel. This is one of Wild Turkey's best products. It does blow the Wild Turkey 101 out of the water in terms of flavor, punch, and power. I just shared this the other night with a few people and they instantly fell in love with it. It's 110 proof. You can still find it in some pockets of the country for like 65 bucks, but consistently you will see it for 80, somewhere in the $80 to $85 range. It's really, really good. Again, probably 8 to 9 years old, full force, powerful flavor, and again, that single barrel experience really just opens up when you get to this higher range, these high-end single barrels. Let me give you another option. Shows you that you can get a lot more age too if you're willing to go to this range, and that is Knob Creek 12. So this is like a $70 to $75 bottle in most of the country, and it's delicious. That 12-year age statement carries a lot of weight, and you feel that with the oak and vanilla. I always get like a vanilla pound cake, even a little bit of raisin, and plenty of oak on this thing. So age, elevated single barrels, again, craft whiskey, a lot of their more limited releases or elevated options are going to be in this category, this $60 to $90 category. You can get your hands on a lot of Maker's Mark limited releases. Things like that just become available to you as you go up in price here. If you're willing to go up to $90, you can get a lot of barrel products. Barrel Bourbon, they do a great job blending. Bottles like Barrel Vantage or their batch each year, which tends to be stellar. So you get a combination of uniqueness and age if you're willing to go up to this level. All right, so now we're moving on to the next range, which is $90 to $120. And these days, I think this is what we would call top shelf bourbon. So, top shelf bourbon is a term you've probably heard before. I would say that this used to apply maybe to the $60 to $90 range, but as the market's crept upward and upward, I feel like you got to step up to maybe even paying $100 plus to get to that top shelf stuff. This also opens up the whole category of most distilleries have at least one special release every year that comes out somewhere in this range. So you could start going a little bit more limited, add some uniqueness to your collection and also just sort of show off that pride that you're a good bourbon hunter and you know your stuff. Let me give you a couple examples. First is Four Roses single barrel strengths. So they've got their own single barrel products that they put out at 100 proof now, and those are available for like 50 to 55 bucks. But if you're willing to step up to the $90 to $100 range, I believe the MSRP is now like 100 bucks on these, you can get their barrel strength options. All 10 recipes are available to you in this offering, so you can start exploring and trying to find them all. They're usually somewhere between 9 to 11 years old in age. The one I've got here is an OESQ. It's 10 years, 8 months old, so plenty of age, plenty of proof, plenty of power, and lots to explore. Then you can also add a bottle like this to your collection. Remus Repeal Reserve. So this is a $100 MSRP bottle as well. Special release from Ross and Squibb. Most people know it as MGP still. This is a delicious pour. I've got the 7, 8, and 9 now. They're all unique and different, and they give you a presence of age. This one has just a touch, a little bit. I think it's 7% of the mash bill here is 19-year-old whiskey. So if you're willing to go up into this $90 to $120 range, you can explore some more barrel strength options. You can get that limited release from a distillery and really dive in there. And I think you start to see more opportunities to add to that top shelf aspect of your collection. Even a Michter's Toasted or a Michter's Barrel Strength Rye or Barrel Strength Bourbon would fall in this category. So you can start to see the world opening up in terms of specialness and people looking at your collection and saying, wow, that guy's got some great, elevated, pretty special bourbon. And of course, what matters more than what people think of your collection is that the whiskeys in this category can be really, truly delicious when they deliver. I will say, now that you're getting up into that $90 to $120 range, there are times where you spend that much money and you are going to be disappointed. I feel like this is the range where you start to get a little choosy, and that's good. You should be wondering whether or not a bottle is worth it if it crosses that $100 threshold for sure. I've had that happen to me with Booker's. You know, certain batches are great, other ones don't really deliver at that $100 level. So it just depends, but if you do find those special bottles, they can be really awesome in this category. Okay, now for our next range, we're gonna go a little bit broader because we're stepping up into that price range where if you're willing to spend this much on bourbon, you're willing to go pretty big to get some good bottles. So we're gonna go from $120 to $200. And I would call this the special release category. While the tiers below this definitely do have the option to get some special releases, if you're willing to go over 120 bucks, if you're willing to go up to $200, most distilleries' special releases are now available to you, and a lot more hunting for those specific bottles starts to take place. Let me give you a couple examples of ones I still think are pretty available, but take it up to that even more special level that is worthy of this price range. So first is Bardstown Discovery Series. So consistently around $140 MSRP. This series has delivered some bangers over the last couple of years. The 11 and 12 both had really well-aged Kentucky bourbon. This 13 is a double barrel finish with Hungarian oak mixed in there as a finishing process. Pretty delicious stuff. Bardstown's also very transparent about everything that goes into their bottles, which is great. But these Discovery Series are an example of those really elevated things that a distillery is doing, where they're putting in their older stocks, really making sure that blend is spectacular or up to snuff so that it lives up to people paying $140, $150 or more dollars. For example, we've got another distillery that really heard the people saying, hey, we want something more elevated, we want something older from you, what can you give us? And they responded with this. Maker's Mark Cellar Aged. So this is $175 MSRP. Much more difficult to find than the Discovery Series, but again, it's Maker's Mark putting 11 and 13 and 14-year-old whiskey into this blend this year for the 2025. And it really is delicious stuff. It's delivering a profile that you're just not going to get from any of the makers, even in that $70 range. So yes, it's a lot more expensive, but it's also much older, and it seems like a lot more precision and like dedicated time goes into the release of these bottles. As we talked about with the previous range though, this is where you also could get a dud or two. You could get some that really disappoint you. And this is also where distilleries seem to be going for a lot of cash grabs of, hey, we said we did something interesting, but really the whiskey wasn't that good and we just put a finish on it, or we did something unique to it and now we're selling it for a lot of money. So again, typically you'll see these have really well aged stocks and deliver a lot of good flavor. You just got to be a little bit discerning. And again, this is where I'd recommend doing a lot more research or waiting for a review or two on a bottle before you pull the trigger at this price range. I really struggled for a while to spend more than $100 on a bourbon. Then the first bottle I actually bought for more than that was a Discovery Series, the Discovery Series number 8. Once I did that, I really did realize, or I felt like that bourbon had a lot more staying power and just delivered at a level that none of the other bourbons in my collection were doing at the time. So when it comes to this tier of whiskey and the next tier we're going to talk about, we do have to acknowledge some level of maybe diminishing returns, or maybe, to put it another way, there's a lot more effort and therefore a lot more cost that comes with getting a bourbon to be truly spectacular or even perfect and just making a very good product. The analogy I'd use is golf. I play golf pretty recreationally, just for fun, a few times a year. I'm about a 14 or 15 handicap. If I really wanted to get good and dedicate my time to playing golf year-round and really try to strive to get better, I think I could get my handicap down to single digits in about a year, something realistically. But then it gets harder and harder to improve. To go from a 9 handicap to a 5 handicap in golf is very difficult because you're shaving off just little bits of strokes and just trying to get better. Then going from a 5 to a 1 or 2 handicap, super, super difficult, because again, it's just the margin of error is so small. And I would say there's something similar that happens in whiskey. Is a bottle really worth triple another bottle that the distillery has? I don't know, but I know that trying to squeeze out from these barrels, from these mash bills, the absolute best whiskey takes a lot of time. It doesn't always hit, and there's a smaller margin for error when you're up in this high rare air of $170. Like, they're trying to show or give you a whiskey that really delivers tons of value or is very close to perfect. And yes, you could probably get 2 or 3 very good bottles for that price, but none of them is going to quite be that good. So if you're really into the hobby and the collecting spirit, you're one of those people who's looking for those spectacular, near perfect or perfect whiskeys. And you got to pay for those. Okay, so our final tier is going to be the just blanket $200 plus bottle. These are our unicorn bourbons. So when it comes to unicorn bourbons, you got to pay a lot of money, but as we just talked about, and thank you for bearing with me through this video, this is where you get into some of that rare air of truly some of the best stuff you may ever taste. One example of a bottle for that is Midtier's 10-year bourbon. Technically the MSRP on this is $195, but after taxes and usually marked up a little bit, you're probably talking more like $225, $230. This is some of the best whiskey I've ever tasted, some of the best whiskey I own. It's probably older than 10 years. Midtier's doesn't really tell us much, but it's usually elevated beyond that. And I'm telling you, when you taste it, you just feel like you're tasting something that swings for the fences and does a great job actually delivering. Another bottle that I honestly think is the best in my collection, but I had to pay the most, or almost the most I've ever paid, and that is Russell's Reserve 15. It's delicious. It's 15 years old. It's got so much black cherry, vanilla, and oak on it. It's kind of ridiculous how much flavor is in this bottle. And again, it's really a matter of slim margins, where this is even better than the Michter's 10 by just a slim margin probably. But it's that little extra effort, that little extra juice that this bottle brings to the table that makes it all that much more special, because you're talking about excellent and then essentially perfect. And that is a really cool, rarefied air to be in. And you're starting to compare bottles that are just truly excellent across the board. There is the occasional unicorn that does not live up to the hype. I think if you go over the $200 mark, you may get a bottle that you're like, that is not as good as the price range. I think it's pretty rare that you get a bottle at $200 plus that's just straight up bad. If you've gotten one of those, I would love to hear the story in the comments, not to make you relive any pain or buyer's remorse, but I think in general, these are very good whiskeys. It also opens up, as you get into these unicorn bottles, basically perfect whiskeys, or the best thing you ever tasted. George T. Stagg, marked up, of course, will be in this category. Most of the BTAC collection, you're talking about Four Roses, small batch, limited edition small batches. You're talking about King of Kentucky. All that becomes available if you cross over the $200 threshold and really hunt for stuff. At this point, I didn't really feel a need to make a cap on this tier, because if you're willing to spend over $200 on a bottle, you're probably willing to spend $350 to get that King of Kentucky or whatever it is. So in this range, again, you can get some of those bottles that are near perfection, which is awesome. All right, everybody, that's gonna do it. I know this was a long video, so thanks for bearing with me. I did monologue about a few different things, but hopefully it's still been helpful to talk about what each of the price tiers really means, or what it represents, what might be available to you in that tier, what some of the pitfalls are of different tiers, but then also what some of the rewards might be as you start to go up this level or ladder of bourbon buying and the price tiers. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this video as a whole and this concept. Maybe give me an example of a bottle or two you think is doing really, really well in its price range. While you're at it, hit the like button on this video. That's what gets it out to the most people. And if you haven't already, and you did enjoy any part of this video, or if you've had any fun at all watching the Bourbon Hutch, the new rule is you gotta subscribe. We're trying to reach 4,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Would love to have you aboard. Till I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.